Can I ask you like a personal question about your own journey, so to speak?
Yeah.
So you're in the IDF, and you mentioned before you were in Lebanon in 1982.
Yeah.
When did you start changing, so to speak? How did you evolve into the position where you are today?
I spoke about it last year when I was here, and actually Jason took a very good footage of it. There is a very detailed a paper of mine about this journey. No, I'm going to answer you, but kind of I'm going to make it very brief because some of the people here heard it. It's called the primacy of the ear. I talk about music and politics. However, I wasn't exactly a hero. I know that I've already read about myself that I was a Marines and pilot and a SEAL diver. Bollocks, nothing. Most of my military service, I was a musician. And at a certain stage, I decided that I don't even want to entertain soldiers. However, I make it very short. In my last days in the war itself, in '82, in June, I was taking care of a lot of wounded people. There was a phase where I come from a Zionist background, and I really made an effort to be a good soldier. And I saw something that disturbed me a lot. But I think that these are things that everyone who participates in war sees. In the last days of my compulsory service in the Israeli army, I was in the Israeli Air Force Orchestra. And we were sent to Lebanon to entertain IDF soldiers. And we were performing in Ansar. Ansar was a concentration camp for Lebanese and Palestinians, basically freedom fighters. They were not recognized as prisoners of war. It was there, and then when I started to understand the scale, the measures of the Palestinian suffering. It was there when I started to understand the Palestinian cause. Along the way, all the refugee camps, I started to ask myself, where are all those people from? You have to understand, in Israel we didn't know really about the Palestinian being expelled. We were told that they left voluntarily, that they were invited to live by the Arab countries. A lot of nonsense. We didn't know about all those massacres. We knew about one massacre, about the USA. And still, Israelis do not know. This is very interesting, because when you hear Holocaust experts, academics, they always talk about the magmatic nature of anti-Semitism. They would say, it was so great in Germany. We were part of the German people, and then out of a sudden, they turned against us. We hear it now. American Jews say, what happened? Why? Why is it magmatic? Because they lack the capacity to look at historical events. They lack the capacity to look at Balfour Declaration, for instance, being there and a strategy that pulled America into World War I. And I can extend about it because not many people know about it. Why did I change and all my peers didn't? This is a big question, and it bothers me a lot. And I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a musician. When I was 17, I met Charlie Parker for the first time. Not in person. I heard his music, I rushed to the shop, I bought the album, and was shocked to find out that he was black. Because until that point, we were told that everything good is Jewish. So I said, it must be Ethiopian. And then John Coltrane was black, and Sonny Rollins. And it was then and there, in my late teens, where I realized that actually rather than dying in an Israeli war, I would prefer to jam with Elvin Jones. And it was a very interesting journey for me. And this journey is not over yet, where I started to learn what was done, how deceptive is the Zionist and the Jewish tribal discourse is, and I'm still working on it. Yeah. The primacy of the year is where I can't go into details. Question? Yeah, just a second. I think we want to document your resistance.
So you were saying that the thing that you're most mentally bothered by is trying to understand how the Israelis can do what they've done.
How the Israelis?
Would have the chutzpah to do what they've done. The absolute inhumanity to do all these things to these people. And it seems to me that it's actually rather simple. Maybe I'm not understanding something. I'm an ex-Mormon, so I know what it's like to be among the chosen people.
Yeah.
And I know how it makes people's heads.
Are you a self-hating Mormon or just ex?
Oh no, self-hating.
Ah, good. Yeah. No. It's a big difference. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I understand because when I go back to Utah,
Yeah.
they do things that no sane person would do outside of the land of Zion.
Yeah.
In terms of thinking, the way they do things and everything. So it seems to me that it's actually simple. They got away with it from 1926, 1929 on when they started killing the first Arabs. They got away with it in 1947 in September when they killed a friend of the Jews, Wallenberg. They got away with it, they got away with it, they got away with it.
Yeah.
So to them it's like, this is history, this is recent history, they think it should continue.
No, I agree.
And your own personal story, it seems to me, is that somehow you managed to slip out of the influence of only talking to other Jews, only talking to other Zionists. But the reality of it is, that, like you say with that poll of 94% of the Israelis supporting Operation Cast Lead, that the Jewish citizens of Israel do not read newspapers from other countries, do not pay attention to anything outside of that, and if they ever do, it's like a Hindu philosopher once said that...
I agree.
That they only look at it from the one standpoint of how can we get away with it.
I totally agree with this point, and they definitely get away with a lot. However, why, and I understand it obviously, why I still try to raise this question, and I'm slightly confused, because the narrative of their suffering is at the center of their self-realization. So for instance, if you're so concerned with your own pain, you would expect an element of compassion. And obviously, we don't see anything as such. Even when there is a kind of a compassion there, it is symbolic and deceptive. So when we see all those Jewish groups that work for Israel, on anti-Zionist Jews that work against Zionism, let's say, always they say, we are against, the first thing that they would say, we are against any form of anti-Semitism, as if anti-Semitism is a Palestinian problem. No, Palestinians have never been anti-Semitic. No, they want to go back to their land, to their houses, to the orchards, to the fields. So, the only way to understand this Jewish progressive support of Palestine is as a Zionist fig leaf. It's bad news. The good news, however, is that until 4 or 5 years ago, there was a complete hegemony of these Jewish groups within the Palestinian Solidarity movement, which is very strange for many reasons. Part of the reason is very easy to say, hey, you are a Jew, you know, it's great, you talk against Israel, we can use it. And this has changed, and it especially changed now with the flotilla. Why it changed? Because, and it's not only Jews, both Jews, you ask a question and I agree, and I just take it a bit farther. Both Jewish progressive groups and at large the left and Marxists failed to support Islamic resistance. This is a fact. They don't support the Taliban, and they don't support the Iraqi freedom fighters. They do not support the Hezbollah, and they failed to support Hamas that was democratically elected. What kind of leftists are they? I tell you what kind of leftists. They are leftists, normal leftists. Lacan, Jacques Lacan, the French psychoanalyst, says that, and I can definitely testify that he is correct, that making love is making love to yourself through the other. It's basically an extended form of masturbation. The left solidarity, the left understanding of solidarity is very much the same. We make love to ourselves on the expense of the Palestinians. It's pretty devastating. So we make scarves, we make badges, but we don't support the Hamas that was elected by the Palestinians. If we support the Palestinians, we have to support their choice. Think about it. However, the Free Gaza movement is the most refreshing news in that sense. And by the way, I don't enter the Palestinian internal politics. It's not. I'm definitely not the person to comment on it. But the Free Gaza movement said, we are going to Gaza. No, you're going to the Hamas. We are going to Gaza. There are 1.5 million in a siege. 80% of them suffer from malnutrition.